China is pushing back against claims that it's being drawn into Russia's war in Ukraine, calling the controversy over captured Chinese nationals manipulation and hype. This response comes after Ukraine paraded 2 Chinese prisoners of war during a press conference. The captured soldiers said they hoped to be swapped and warned other Chinese nationals against joining the conflict. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky had claimed that hundreds of Chinese nationals are fighting alongside Russian forces on the front lines. But Beijing is distancing itself from the matter. A foreign ministry spokesperson said China is verifying the details and urged all parties to avoid politicising the situation. He stressed that Beijing has repeatedly warned its citizens to stay away from war zones and that any consular cases will be handled in accordance with Chinese law. Well, meanwhile, a Ukrainian drone attack on Russia's Kursk city has killed an 85-year-old woman and injured 9 others, according to regional authorities. Well, joining us to discuss these developments is Jim Rice, a professor of international law, who's joining us from Vigan in the Philippines. Jim, the first thing I'd like to bring up is this conversation around Chinese soldiers fighting with Russia against Ukrainian forces. Beijing, as we've heard, distancing themselves from this situation. Do you think this is an isolated incident or a few hundred potentially soldiers, or is this a larger problem of Chinese involvement in the Russia-Ukraine war?
Well, apart from what we know about the captured Chinese soldiers and the other 100 or so soldiers that the government of Ukraine is alleging, we do know that the PRC has been supporting Russia in many different ways in terms of supplying weapons and non-lethal supplies to Russia. And so, given all of this, I would regard their stories at this point as being fabrications. They're lying.
Yes, Jim, looking at this, of course, potential geopolitical ramification of China, one of the world's biggest superpowers, potentially being further involved in this conflict. We know the United States, of course, have been involved in negotiations as well. What doors does this potentially open, given ongoing US-China trade disputes as well?
That's really an interesting question. I see that there are a couple of questions right there. The first pertains exclusively to Ukraine, Russia, and Trump's alleged or apparent negotiations. I believe just today or yesterday, Trump basically falsely accused Zelensky once again of having started the Ukraine war. This is in contradiction of all known facts. Trump is again telling lies. Zelensky did not start the Ukraine war. Vladimir Putin did. And it seems to me that Trump is forcing Zelensky into a fake peace, and it must be resisted by the European community.
Yes, Jim, now, and to bring an end to the discussion, sorry to cut you off there, we do have to look at these strikes which have gone on, these reported strikes, allegedly an 85-year-old woman killed in the Russian Kursk region from a Ukraine drone attack. There have also been reports of Russian strikes in the Sumy region following the reported deadly attacks over the weekend in which 35 people were killed. What do these strikes tell you about the ongoing conflict?
Well, the obvious thing that tells me is that Putin is not negotiating in good faith. Putin is trying to carry on this war regardless, knowing that he can, because Trump doesn't care. Trump is basically trying to force Zelensky into the position of capitulating, and essentially Trump is trying to force Zelensky out of office, which is exactly what Putin has been demanding all along. I believe you asked something about China, though. That's an interesting question. Can you rephrase that, please?
Unfortunately, Jim, we don't have any more time, but thank you very much for joining.